Hey guys, I want to do a video about what's going on around here with China and the South Pacific and the China Sea and all that area. There's a lot going on here that I don't think it gets enough news coverage. I post a lot of this stuff, and a lot of people say, "Well, nothing's really happening, Steve. We're never going to go to World War III with China and stuff like that." And I think China's already fighting a war without troops. They take over countries with loans. They don't really take it over, but what they do is they take over ports. What they do is they loan these small countries so much money that they can't pay it back, and they default on the loans. And what they do is they look at at the government, and they really, basically a government has all its information out there, and they have people that try to, I think, accountants that try to figure out how much can we loan these people and get them to default on purpose, and then we can take over this port. Because China's very flush in money from the United States and all these different countries that buy goods from them, okay? So what they do is they loan countries like Sri Lanka money, and Sri Lanka defaulted. I believe it was Sri Lanka, and they took a port over there, okay? And then they loan money to countries like Africa. And Africa, they've actually got troops over there, I heard, and China's like run amok in Africa because it's a very easy place to take over. What they do is they go in there and they just, I'm not saying taking over the government. I'm talking about taking over financially, because they're very smart like that. So what they do is they go in and they give them the money, and they put in the loan that if you default, we get your rare earth, metals. And a lot of African nations, they're poor. They're looking for money, and a lot of these people that are in the governments there are not educated people, because they're educated in colleges that are substandard over there, or no college at all. So they accept these loans, and 2, 3, 4, 5 years later they default on them, and then China says, "Okay, we're coming in to get your rare earths. Read the thing, read the loan, and you'll see that we get your rare earths." So that's what happens. So that's one of the ways that they're taking over, and they're undermining countries, and they're making them even more poverty stricken by doing stuff like that, and they're getting a port out of it and stuff too. So they're making these countries so that they can't really support a military. So it's an easy takeover later, I think. And anybody with a military mind that can pretty much think this out and see what they're doing. They're prepping the countries, to basically for a takeover, possibly in the future sometime. And maybe they won't take them over because they already kind of own the government for one reason or another. And I'm going to get to that part later. Here's another way that they try to take over. Australia, they're sending tons of Chinese people in there as immigrants. Okay. On some of their small islands, like Christmas Island, the Chinese have already pretty much taken over. And the main language, I believe, on Christmas Island, I believe it's Chinese now, if I'm not correct. I think I'm correct on that. And also the Solomon Islands, they went in there. They're trying to get them to take loans, and they wanted them to denounce Taiwan, which was a friend of the Solomon Islands. And they wanted to denounce Taiwan, and they did. The government came out and denounced Taiwan, says we're no longer your friend, and and China asked them to do that, and we'll give you money, okay? And then the other thing is the 9-dash line thing that they have with, where they said we own this portion of the South China Sea. It's all ours. Anything that's within those lines is ours. Well, The Hague come out and says, well, no, that's not the way it is. There's some Vietnamese islands that are inside that line. And also there's some economic zones that are inside those lines. And The Hague has backed up these countries and said, hey, no, China, you do not own those. But China just ignores them. They figure, well, okay, we're bullies. We've got power. We've got a military might now. And the United States has to travel to get here. And, it's going to be hard for them, and right now they're not ready for all this stuff because people are infighting and they're having their own wars, and between the Democrats and the Republicans in a huge way, and they see that as a weakness. And I think China looks at the weaknesses of countries and says, hey, this is what we'll do this here. The United States is not really paying attention right now, we can do all this stuff. And that's one way. Now, with the Spratly Islands out here, the Philippines asked the United States, hey, when Obama was president, not when Trump was president, when Obama was president, asked for help. Hey, China's out there, they're building some sort of stuff out there, they're saying they're building a weather station. Next thing you know, they're building a base out there. Next thing you know, they're bringing missiles and planes out there and ships out there. And they block out the Filipinos with like a 600 boat militia, which is basically fishing boats that aren't meant to fish, but just to block and be kind of a pain out there. So, the Philippines is going to send ships out there to kill 600 China fishermen because it would be a media disaster, and know what the United States go in there and do something like that. So they're very smart in what they do. So they took over that island. Now who's going to go in there and get them off? The United States isn't going to go get them off because it's too late. I mean, when Trump took over, he probably said it's too touchy. What are we going to start World War III over a little tiny island? But that island is in a major place because it sits right off of the Philippines. It's part of the Philippines. It's right near. I believe it's right off of Palawan or something like that. It's not too far away from here. And it's a disaster for both the United States and the Philippines. But the Philippines now is getting kind of ticked off at the Chinese, and I think even Duterte himself has gotten ticked off. And they're building ships. They're trying to build up the military might rather, so that they can do what they need to do to protect their islands more. Okay, and not just their islands, but places where they want to drill for oil and stuff. So the Philippines has decided they want to use a Philippine oil company, and they've been talking to other companies and stuff like that too, and they're going to go out to one of these places that is past that line that China says, hey, this is ours, but it's actually in their economic zone, the EEZ zone or whatever they call it. And Duterte said, hey, we're going to start drilling for oil out there now, and that's what we're going to do, and that's why they want these extra ships and stuff. But I think this is it really ticked off China, and I think China's like watching this, and this could cause the United States to come down, because I'm sure China's going to send some ships in there or something like that and say, hey, no, you're not putting an oil rig in here. No, you're not going to be doing this. No, you're not going to be doing anything that drilling for oil on our property. And this is gonna come to a tipping point at some time, because China's hungry for oil. They're very hungry for oil, and that's why they're doing all this stuff all over the world, trying to get mineral rights and things like that, and metal rights, all this stuff. They're just trying to get whatever they can grab for free by fooling people and trickery. And a lot of people don't see this. The Solomon Islands definitely doesn't see this. I mean, these people, they must be as dumb as a brick down there, or the politicians got bribed. Recently, when Duterte went over there, they offered him a large share of the company. It said in the newspaper here, and he basically turned it down because it's kind of like China offered him like a bribe, and they told him, hey, you overlook, what's going on in the Spratlys and all that stuff, and we'll give you this here. And he came back, and I think China thought he was going to be quiet about it and accept it, like most countries do. They accept the bribes, like even like Joe Biden and stuff like that, and all these other people in the United States and in other countries, and like the Solomon Islands. I'm sure they got some really good kickbacks, but Duterte didn't accept it. He come back and told the people what happened. And I was, living in the Philippines, I was actually kind of proud of him after that, because, I think he knows how to play China like a violin. I mean, he plays, they dance, but eventually they're going to stop dancing, because they're going to figure out what's going on. It's a dangerous game. It's a dangerous game to play. I think at some point there's going to be some sort of disaster that happens here. They've already, China has rammed through a Philippine fishing boat down here and just kept on going and left them behind. And the Philippines really can't complain much about it because they're not a powerhouse down here. They're not a military power. Yeah, they can file complaints with China all they want, but China just ignores it. They don't care. They're like a flea on a dog. I mean, yeah, it bites you, and after a while, you scratch it and you kill it when you scratch it. And I'm a bit worried about that with all these small countries down here, because eventually China's going to scratch one of those fleas. And it's getting dangerous. But I think China, like with some of the stuff that they've been saying lately, they've been coming out talking about they're using a lot of propaganda, but I'm not so sure it's propaganda, because they're talking about sinking aircraft carriers because they said that the United States couldn't take 5,000 deaths like that immediately. I mean, think about that. 5,000 deaths, that's 100 people from each state that they'd be burying all at once. I mean, can you imagine what the American media would do to that? Are we going to get involved with China? We can't, we don't want World War III. There'd be protests in the streets because, the liberals would go crazy over it. We'd be back in another Vietnam War, basically. And the question is, would Europe follow us into this? Because when we're over fighting a war in the China Sea or something like that, you leave a lot of openings for Russia, and Russia's kind of playing footsie with China too. So you have a lot of this going on, and Putin and Xi, before they weren't very friendly with each other, but now they're kind of like playing footsie with each other. And the United States has a lot going on with Russia right now, flying, B-52s and bombers and stuff like that up near the submarine bases up there off of Russia. And it makes one wonder, like, that's not stuff that we did that much before. We did, but not to the extent that we are now. We're sending a lot of submarines, more submarines into the China Sea now. Most of them are fast attacks for taking out ships and stuff like that. They're not the bomber type. The bomber type usually probably hovers off a little bit off of China, but mostly above Russia, probably up by the Barents or something like that, where they used to go, because it's still kind of a Cold War going on with Russia. We still have that going on. People say that there isn't, but there is. I think we have submarines off of China too now. They probably come out of Washington State. Things like that are going on. Also, we have to think about this. China sent a bunch of people to the United States, and people that were teaching World War II history noticed that there was a lot of Chinese people from China, Chinese students, sitting in the class studying about World War II Pacific history. Now, why would you send these people first when they're going to go back to China? Okay, why are they learning this history? Why? You know why? Because they're learning these battles because they want to know what they're going to face if this happens again. They want to know what they can do this time around. And I got a feeling that they're studying all this stuff because China's a slow game. They could keep playing the game they're playing for 100 years where there's no war, and just take over these countries financially and stuff like that, buy up property, own all kinds of land. One thing about the Philippines is that it's very difficult for people to buy property here. It's very, and that kind of puts a halt to China. They can start businesses here. You can own a business, you can rent, stuff like that. But it's hard for them to buy property here, and that's a good thing for the Philippines. I give the Philippines a lot of credit for that, because in the United States, I think if the United States did that, where only Americans could buy property, I think that would be a really, really good thing. But it'll never happen. It's too late in the game now. China is also buying property up in the United States. They're buying rare earth companies And the United States has to put a stop to some of this stuff. But I mean, our laws kind of are very loose in that respect about who buys what. Because if a private owner comes along and says, "Hey, I want to buy this here, I want to buy this company," and that guy happens to be a Chinaman, and he who knows if he works for China or he's a spy for China or whatever, you don't know. But I mean, with the way they're coming down here and they're doing things on these islands with the loans and stuff like that, I'm sure they're playing a whole different game in the United States, and God only knows what it is. Um, look at the students that they sent over there. They're over there to steal technology that we have that they don't teach in their schools, and that technology moves very fast, and China's on top of that. They're not totally on top of it like the United States is, but they're catching up to us in a very big way, and they're catching up to Japan too. Their ships are also very up to par. Our ships, yeah, we're coming out with new ships all the time, and our technology is pretty good, and we're loading up these ships with new technology and stuff like that. But remember during World War II, at the beginning of World War II, we had all World War One technology for the most part, and we had to play catch up really fast. And we were very lucky that we did catch up to Japan when we were fighting Japan, and at a great cost too to American soldiers and stuff like that in the beginning of the war with Japan. We lost a lot of soldiers because of the tracks that were going up on the beach and stuff like that. We had Sherman tanks. We had World War One technology basically, and a lot of this stuff they had to build really fast and have engineers do this stuff really fast. And it was amazing that the United States came together like that back then. But with today's technology, I mean, it takes years to build submarines and stuff like that because we're not on war footing. Okay, when you're on war footing, things happen faster. People start working together. They start putting things together faster. They pay people. Money just starts to flow into these companies and stuff like that. It's gonna be, if we do have another war, it's gonna be really scary because their weapons are being built to take out aircraft carriers. Now we went to sink one of our aircraft carriers once that was decommissioned, and we couldn't sink it. It was unsinkable. They tried sinking it with several weapons. Unless you used a nuclear weapon on it, I don't think you could sink it. I think it'd be pretty hard. And they had a hard time sinking that thing. I'm not even sure if they ever did or what happened with it. I didn't get any more on that story, but I did hear that they couldn't sink it. That came through across Google News one time. I'm not sure how they would take it out. They'd probably have to take it out with a big cruise missile or something like that right into the side of the aircraft. I'm sure you might not sink it, but you know what? You're going to kill a lot of people on there, and I'm sure they could probably kill 3/4 of the people on board, if not all of them. And the ones that survived wouldn't be in good shape. So, what's happening with China? That's the basics of it right now. Where we're going with China, who knows? I don't think China's going to back down. It doesn't seem like they are. They're financially right now with what Trump's doing with them, with tariffs and stuff like that, and all that stuff that's been going on in the States with them, and trying to bring some balance in that. They think that we might get a Democrat in next time who's just gonna, hey guys, whatever you want. What do you want? Do you want secrets? Do you want this? Do you want that? You want to take over this island? Go ahead. We don't care. We'll just overlook it. You know what I mean? Like, the question is, what happens in the next election? And we got one more year to go. Are they gonna keep on playing that game where we're gonna wait for the next election? Because it makes you wonder whether they're having they have something going on with this. And we talk about the Russians, which is all just fake. I'm more worried about China, to be honest with you. Like committing voter fraud or doing something with voters, or on Facebook, or buying up something, donating money to Democrats or something like that. That's what I'm more worried about. But do I think that's going to happen? I think Trump's still going to get in there, and I hope he does. And I think the China thing, then when he has this second term, he can do a heck of a lot more than he can in his first term. The question is whether the Democrats will support him. and that's a huge problem. I think the Republicans will rally around them the second time around. I think the Democrats are going to have to come with terms that, guess what, they lost the election twice in a row now, and next time we're also facing possible civil war in the United States between the two parties. I mean, people hate each other. If you don't have the same view as somebody else, they don't like you. And I see that even amongst Republicans and Democrats. Like everybody's fighting about politics today. I mean, it's awful. And China takes advantage of that. China looks at all that stuff and says, "Oh, look at this stuff." Like look what's going on with the United States. Geez, we could do this here, and they'd just be too busy fighting to even pay any attention to what we're doing. Oh, look at the liberal news. We could, we can use that because if we do something, they'll just ignore us. They won't even show it on the news probably, or they won't make a big story out of it, or they'll tell the United States to basically stay out of it because we shouldn't go to war. This could cause World War III or whatever. Nobody wants to go to World War III. I mean, there won't be a World War IV. We'll be fighting it with sticks and stones, like they used to say. And World War III, if it starts, it's not going to be fun. I mean, they would spread like wildfire. I just don't. A lot of countries would start falling really fast, and a lot of allies and people like that, and people would start siding with whoever they're going to side with, and who knows which side Russia's going to fall on, and they would probably go with China because they usually, or whether they'd fall with the United States. And that's the big concern nowadays is, we have to worry about these things. And it doesn't look good. It's not promising. I hope that Trump can get in there and resolve all this stuff. But the Democrats and the Republicans have to come together and come to, figure out some sort of idea to solve this China crisis. Because China's not listening to the Hague. They say that they own that South China Sea, and I think they're even going to eventually try to make that bigger, and encompass a lot of different places, maybe even the South Pacific Islands or something like that, or start telling people that hey, we own this here, we own that there, and if you don't like it, too bad. And what are people going to do? Are we going to go to war over a couple of small islands? I mean, we did in World War II, and we lost a lot of people. I mean, those are things that we have to take into consideration. Like, are we going to worry about the United States more and just worry about the states, or are we going to worry about the world more? And I think we kind of have to worry about other countries because those countries are our friends, and if we let them fall into Chinese hands, they're going to become communists. They're against Christianity, they're against any religion, and they kill those people, or they send them to some sort of camp to change them. But anyway, guys, I just wanted to kind of address that. I think I covered just about everything that I could cover about China, because a lot of people were asking me, and I do post a lot of stuff on China on my page. I'm gonna start discussing this a little bit more as I see more come out about it, and I'll post it on my Philippine info channel, and my group. If you look that up on Facebook, you'll find it, and then my YouTube channel, and I also post it on my regular Facebook page. Okay, hopefully this resolves itself, because this is big. This is the way that World War II started. And we can't ignore this. World War II started in this way where countries started taking over other countries and doing things like that, and eventually the United States had to get involved. This time here it's a little bit different, that they're taking them over kind of economically. And not even just economically, like with the Philippines, the Spratly Islands, they took over those islands outright. Now those islands are contested, and let me just say this: contested islands. If you got 5 people contesting over an island, and one person one of the countries goes out there and, you know, plants a flag out there and starts building a base out there, then the other countries have to go to The Hague or whatever. But the Philippines pretty much had most of that settled beforehand. I mean, afterwards, they had it all settled. And it was kind of settled before that was their property, you know, and it belongs to them. And those places where China wants to go out there and drill for oil in Vietnam, you know, that's all settled. Those EEZ zones, economic zones, are, you know, whoever they belong to, they belong to. And just because China says, no, wait, that's mine. Okay, we're going to send a Coast Guard ship up there if you do that, and we'll block you. And we'll send up 600 fishermen to fish in that area, and they'll block you. And if you hit one of our boats, we're off to war. You know, and that's what they do. They have bully tactics, you know. But anyway, guys, I just want to give my piece on that. Thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to subscribe. Please leave any comments you have and give me the big thumbs up. We'll talk to you later, guys.